So how do you take your listening from listening to respond, right, and give them the answers and fix things, or listening to hear where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm holding that person to this because you said that and they did this and blah, 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 blah. Instead, how do you turn that into active listening? Well, one of the best things that you can do is ask for permission before you speak. And I don't mean going, can I talk now? Because no, you can't talk now, Rudy face. Instead, ask open-ended questions that get the other person to keep talking. Hey, how did you feel about that? Or what did you think when you heard that? Or, man, that must be pretty overwhelming to deal with. What do you think you're gonna do? Don't give them the answer and don't keep talking. Ask the question and then give them time to answer. That's a 10 count. For those of us who went to kindergarten, that's this long. It may seem like a long time to wait, but psychology has proven that more often than not, our teenagers and the other people we're doing life with, they respond and they communicate way faster than their brains are thinking. And that's why things come out of their mouths that they don't mean or they regret later, because they haven't had time to process. So give them time to hear the question, think about the question, process the different answers to the question, consider which options are best, and then decide how they feel like they want to respond. Give them 10 seconds. And if after 10 seconds they're still not saying anything, ask the question again in a different way. Hey, so how'd you feel? You don't need me to answer that for you. You have a brain. Listen, I know you make good choices, so what do you think? Give them an opportunity to answer the question before you answer it for them. The second thing that you can do as far as asking permission before you answer the question is straight up ask them. Say, hey, are you here to vent? Do you want to just keep talking, or were you hoping to get a response from me? Because I have some suggestions, but we don't have to go there if you just need to talk. I get that. This is going to switch your listening from listening to hear, where you're keeping a chart of everything that was said, and listening to respond, where you're jumping in trying to consciously or subconsciously fix the problem, and switch you into active listening, where you're building trust and rapport by simply listening, just listening, and not showing them how smart you are, how much you know, or how good you are at fixing problems. But just know, there is a stereotype in psychology-based information, like psychological studies, and it's a stereotype because it happens over and over and over again. And it doesn't mean it's a bad stereotype, but I'm going to break this stuff down here for you in simple terms. And if you decide to follow those links, which are the main links by the creators of these studies, just know their websites are almost as old as their studies. They are super basic, kind of hard to navigate, and there is no like exciting videos and stuff. You are going to, you're gonna maybe want some support as you navigate those things. So you might actually do better by hitting up Google and just seeing how multiple people have interacted with that information over time, and watch some of the different videos that explain what's going on and what their studies have shown based on transactional analysis and Karpman's drama triangle and some of this other stuff that we're doing, just because it's a little bit more easy to digest and understand. So transactional analysis is actually really interesting, and it's one of my favorite things to study and to teach. It could potentially break your brain for a little bit, so take this with a grain of salt and know that these videos are here so that you can purposefully, intentionally come back and watch them again, knowing that the first time you watch something, you should watch it or read it or interact with it simply to see what sticks out to you. Just see what your subconscious thinks you need to know or connects to. The second time that you learn a new lesson or you engage with new information, the second time you hear it, go into it looking for actual information. Okay, these things popped out last time. What else can I learn from it now? And then the third thing that you want to do as you're interacting with any kind of new information is wait until the third time before you try and apply it, because you don't even understand what's in the recipe the first time. You're just trying to figure out what ingredients go in it. And then the second time, you've only tried it once. You've only maybe baked those cookies one time. And while they may have tasted great, there's a good chance you burnt one or undercooked one, or you forgot to put in the baking powder. So the third time is when you start to try and actually figure out how it applies. Take that again, really simply, watch this once for what sticks out to you consciously or subconsciously. Make mental notes of that and think about why that might be happening. The second thing is try and apply it a little bit, but really you're looking for new information to build off of what you learned the first time, that stuck out to you the first time. And then the third time you hear something, that's when you can actually start applying it, okay? So we're going to talk about 3 different ego states. You can look at them on the worksheets or in the book, but it looks like the parent ego state, the adult ego state, and the child ego state. We're going to keep it really simple. Even though those break down a little bit more, we're going to dig into that in the next slide. But here we're going to talk about the parent ego state. These are behaviors, thoughts, feelings, and reactions to the world that are copied from parents or people in authority, and they're seen with no context and no filter, okay? So these are the things that we've been taught. Like when you tell your teenager, take your shoes off the couch, they're hearing, take my shoes off the couch because I'm supposed to. They're not hearing why. They're not understanding the purpose. They're not understanding what could happen if they don't. All they hear is because I said so. Okay? That parent ego state is where we go to even as adults when we are under stress in certain areas. Okay? The adult ego state is in the middle for a reason, because adult is in the middle, parent is up here, and child is down here. The adult ego state is behaviors, thoughts, feelings, and reactions to the world, which are a direct response to what you're going through right now in this moment, to the present moment, the specific situation that you're in right now. It is recorded and then replayed in your mind with context and understanding. That means that, like, if you think back to a memory of your childhood or your teen years, you only remember snapshots and pieces of it, right? You don't remember what happened that whole day or what was going on in your family or whatever. You're remembering bits and pieces. So the adult ego state is what's happening right now in the context of what's been going on before this and what's about to happen after this. It's also the things that we have learned that help us interpret reality. The things that we have learned that help us interpret reality. Not how we remember things from our childhood or how we view the future, but how we interact with the world that we're in this moment. Okay, so transactional analysis has been around for a long time, not like 100 years, but since the 60s, 70s. And what's cool about this study is that it's still being studied. People are still doing it, using it, and adapting it today, even though life looks way different now in our households, in our jobs, in our lifestyles than it did in the 60s and 70s. We are still using this because it works, okay? So if you want some more information on this, you can hit my resources and link page at the end of the workbook, as well as the regular book. I can drop them here if you're interested. But just know there is a stereotype in psychology-based information, like psychological studies, and it's a stereotype because it happens over and over and over again. And it doesn't mean it's a bad stereotype, but I'm going to break this stuff down here for you in simple terms. And if you decide to follow those links, which are the main links by the creators of these studies, just know their websites are almost as old as their studies. They are super basic, kind of hard to navigate, and there is no exciting videos and stuff. you are going to, you're gonna maybe want some support as you navigate those things. So you might actually do better by hitting up Google and just seeing how multiple people have interacted with that information over time, and watch some of the different videos that explain what's going on and what their studies have shown based on transactional analysis and Karpman's drama triangle and some of this other stuff that we're doing, just because it's a little bit more easy to digest and understand. The child ego state is behaviors, thoughts, feelings, and reactions to the world replayed in our mind from childhood. So just like I talked about in the adult ego state, that's where our brains go when we're like, well, when I was a kid, I wasn't allowed to do this. Or when I was a kid, I drank from the hose and played in the street until the streetlights came on, right? We remember certain things from our childhood, and we use that lens or that view and perspective of how our childhood was, good, bad, or otherwise, to determine how we're going to act in a situation, right? So this is our internal response, typically subconscious, right? Our internal response to an external event. How does that make me feel? What is my emotional or mental situation here? Not where am I physically in space and how am I interacting with the world around me, but how do I feel about the way that I'm interacting with the world around me? And those are the things that we feel, okay? So our parent ego state can actually break up into two parts. So we have our parent, our adult, and our child. And our parent ego state breaks into two different parts. The first one is the critical parent. For those of you who follow gentle parenting, that's our aggressive parenting style. We also have our nurturing parent. In a lot of households, there's one or the other. One person is the nurturing and one is the critical. They're not usually in one body unless we have a single parent situation where they're forced to be mom and dad, and then those roles kind of get mushed around, and that person's reaction to the world around them fluctuates based on whichever role they feel like they need to be in that moment. The adaptive child shuts down or runs away when they are under stress. More often than not, they do what they're told without question. And that might be great for your 10-year-old when you want them to be safe, but that's not great as an adult because they don't know how to express their emotions and they are fearful of vulnerability. That's our adaptive child. The adaptive child shuts down or runs away when they are under stress. More often than not, they do what they're told without question. And that might be great for your 10-year-old when you want them to be safe, but that's not great as an adult because they don't know how to express their emotions and they are fearful of vulnerability. That's our adaptive child. The adult ego state is the only place and time that logical, healthy decisions get made. See, most people make decisions based on emotion and then they justify them logically. It may look something like your teenager goes out and decides to ride in the car with somebody that they're not supposed to. Now, they may tell you, oh, well, I needed a ride and you were running late or you didn't answer your phone. They have all of these logical reasons to justify why they got in the car with that person. However, that really wasn't what was crossing their mind. They got in the car with that person because they needed to feel like the decision was theirs to make, or they needed to feel powerful, or they were peer pressured, or they wanted to be liked, or they needed attention. The cool thing about the adult ego state, though, is you can actually pull any of those other categories, right? Our adaptive child, our free child, our aggressive or critical parent. We can actually pull those negative stress areas into the adult ego state in one simple way. All we have to do is use the nurturing parent to pull them into adult. So give me a second on this one because it might be kind of hard to understand, and I definitely want you to look at this in the book as well as come back and watch this video again for more context. But what is going to be really super interesting to understand here is that, like I said, the adult ego state is where logical, healthy decisions get made. Obviously, it would be great if the majority of the time we could be in our adult ego state. However, that's just not the case. majority of the time, we are bouncing around between free, adaptive, critical, and nurturing parent based on the stressor and the amount of stress that we're under. But knowing that your teenager, your spouse, your little kids, your parents are all doing the same thing, you can actually take that power back. See, any one of those, the critical parent, the free child, and the adaptive child, which are kind of negatives, right? We don't want to hang out in those ego states for too long because one, good healthy decisions are not being made there. And two, it's all based on emotion instead of, and based on stories that we're telling ourselves, not actually what's going on in the world or what's happening in this moment or what needs to happen for growth to happen. So to get them back in that adult ego state, you just have to switch into your nurturing parent, which again, the nurturing parent uses a slower pace, a quieter volume. They speak with a tone that is comforting and welcoming, even if it's assertive, right? But it's never aggressive. And using those techniques, you can pull anyone at any age out of those other ego states and back into a healthy, logical ego state where healthy, smart, strong decisions can be made. So I'm going to give you an example. And what I want you to do on this one is I just want you to think about two things. The first one is, which one of these characters do I feel like is me? If this was my family, which one of these characters is me? And then I also want you to figure out which characters match up with which ego state. There's one for each of them, so play along. So 4 kids are running around the pool. Both parents are outside, and one of the parents tells the kids, "Hey, stop running by the pool, please." One kid immediately starts walking. Another kid sits down completely. Another kid runs and cannonballs into the pool. And the 4th kid says, "Why aren't we allowed to run around the pool?" The other parent says, right, so some of them are still running, some of them are moving around, one of them's cannonballing. The other parent goes, "If y'all don't stop running around that pool, you are going to break your necks." A moment later, one of the kids slips and hurts themselves. Parent 1, who had said, "Stop running by the pool, please," immediately says, "Are you okay?" While the other parent, who had said, "Y'all are going to break your necks," immediately says, "I told you that you'd get hurt. What's wrong with you?" So take a second. Think about that story. Which character are you in the story? Are you the nurturing parent who spoke with a calm tone? Are you the aggressive or critical parent who was loud and obnoxious, demanding? Were you one of those 4 kids? Did you stop immediately when mom gave or dad gave a demand or a call to action? Did you say, "Oh, I'm just going to give up," like an adaptive child? Did you question it and say, "Hey, I need to understand more. Like, can you explain it to me?" Or were you one of those kids who just didn't listen at all, or straight up said, "I don't care what you say," and runs and cannonballs into the pool? It doesn't really matter which one you associate yourself with, because the opportunity now is to all figure out how to become that nurturing parent. Because we know that nurturing parent is going to get all 4 of those children to listen. It's also going to calm the critical parent, and it's going to make a much more enjoyable and safe afternoon for everyone around the pool.